The courtroom fell silent as Lieutenant Commander Maya Washington lay sprawled on the cold marble floor, blood trickling from her split lip. Judge Harrison's gavel slammed repeatedly, but nobody paid attention. All eyes were fixed on Sheriff Deputy Brock Reynolds, his face twisted with rage, standing over the decorated Navy SEAL with his boot still raised. "You people need to learn respect," he snarled. What the racist cop didn't know was that in exactly 72 hours, his entire world would collapse in ways no one could imagine. How far would this corrupt system go to silence one woman fighting for justice? Before we dive into this shocking story, let us know where you're watching from, and if you believe in standing up for justice against all odds, hit that like and subscribe button to join our community of truth seekers. Lieutenant Commander Maya Washington hadn't always planned to return to Riverdale. After 15 years away, serving her country in some of the most dangerous places on Earth, the small Georgia town felt like a distant memory. At 35, Maya had broken barriers that most thought impossible. The first black woman to complete the brutally demanding Navy SEAL training, she'd gone on to lead classified operations in places the American public would never know about. Her service record spoke of valor, tactical brilliance, and unwavering courage under fire. But duty had called her home in an unexpected way. Her grandmother, Eloise Washington, the woman who had raised her after her parents' death, had passed away suddenly. As the executor of the estate and only living relative, Maya had no choice but to request temporary leave from her unit and return to handle her grandmother's affairs. The changes in Riverdale hit her immediately upon arrival. The town had grown, with new shopping centers and housing developments sprawling where farmland once stood. Yet beneath the veneer of progress, Maya sensed the familiar undercurrents that had driven her to leave as soon as she graduated high school. It started with small things. The waitress at the local diner who served everyone else promptly, but somehow never saw Maya waiting. The way security guards followed her through. Department stores, despite her conservative dress and military bearing. The elderly white couple who clutched their belongings tighter when she jogged past them on her morning run. Some things never change, Maya muttered to herself as she drove through the town square on her third day back. That's when she spotted the commotion outside the public library. A young black teenager, no more than 15, was surrounded by two police officers. The boy's backpack contents were scattered across the sidewalk, his school books and personal items exposed for all to see. His face showed a mixture of fear and humiliation as one officer pushed him against the patrol car. "I didn't do anything," the boy protested, his voice cracking. "I was just waiting for my mom." Maya pulled her car over instantly. 15 years of military discipline had taught her to assess situations before acting, but she couldn't ignore what was happening. She stepped out of her vehicle, moving deliberately, hands visible. "Excuse me, officers," she called out in a calm, authoritative voice. "Is there a problem here?" Both officers turned, startled by the interruption. The teenager looked at her, with desperate hope in his eyes. "Ma'am, this is police business. Please return to your vehicle," the younger officer said, hand instinctively moving toward his holster. "I understand," Maya replied, maintaining her distance. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Maya Washington, U.S. Navy. I'm just concerned about the situation. Has this young man committed a crime?" Before the officer could respond, the sound of tires screeching announced the arrival of another police vehicle. A tall, broad-shouldered man emerged, his uniform identifying him as Sheriff Deputy Brock Reynolds. His cold blue eyes swept over the scene, narrowing when they landed on Maya. "What do we have here?" Reynolds asked, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. "Just handling a suspicious person report, Deputy," the younger officer responded. This woman interrupted the process. Reynolds approached Maya slowly, evaluating her. "Military, huh? That what you're claiming?" Maya straightened reflexively. "Lieutenant Commander Maya Washington, sir. I'm not claiming anything. I was concerned about the situation and wanted to ensure everything was being handled properly." Reynolds' laugh held no humor. "Well, ain't that special? We got ourselves a real American hero. Let me tell you something, Lieutenant Commander. In Riverdale, we handle our own business. We don't need outsiders telling us how to do our jobs, especially not." He paused, looking her up and down with undisguised contempt. "Your kind." Maya felt a chill run through her that had nothing to do with the autumn air. She'd faced armed insurgents with less malice in their eyes than what she saw in Reynolds's gaze. "Deputy, I'm simply asking what crime this young man has committed," she said evenly. "He matches the description of a shoplifting suspect," Reynolds said, "and now you're interfering with police business." Maya noticed the boy trembling now. "He's a child, and there are ways to investigate without public humiliation." She reached for her phone, intending to record the interaction. It was her right as a citizen, and she knew it. What she didn't expect was Reynolds's lightning-fast reaction, his hand clamped around her wrist with bruising force. "That looks like you're reaching for a weapon to me." "It's a phone, Deputy Reynolds. I have the legal right to record police interactions in public spaces." His grip tightened. "What I see is a hostile individual interfering with police business and potentially reaching for a weapon." Maya knew the playbook. She'd heard stories like this too many times. With deliberate movements, she placed her phone back in her pocket. "I understand. I'm not looking for trouble." "Too late for that," Reynolds snarled. He twisted her arm behind her back with practiced efficiency. "You're under arrest for interfering with police business." The cold metal of handcuffs bit into her wrists as Reynolds secured them with unnecessary force. Maya didn't resist. Years of training had taught her when to fight and when to strategically retreat. This was not the battlefield she would choose. "My military ID is in my wallet," she said calmly. "My vehicle registration and insurance are in the glove compartment." Reynolds ignored her, roughly patting her down and removing her phone, wallet, and car keys. The teenager watched wide-eyed as the decorated Navy SEAL was placed in the back of Reynolds's patrol car. The last thing Maya saw before the door slammed shut was the fear in the boy's eyes, a fear she recognized all too well. 24 hours. That's how long Maya Washington sat in a holding cell at the Riverdale County Detention Center without formal charges being filed. 24 hours without a phone call. 24 hours watching the constitutional rights she had sworn to protect being systematically violated. The cell was cold, deliberately so, Maya suspected. A psychological tactic to wear down detainees. The thin mattress on the metal bench offered little comfort, and the constant fluorescent lighting made sleep nearly impossible. But Maya had endured far worse conditions during her SEAL training. She sat upright, back against the wall, mind clear and focused. She observed the deputies who passed by her cell. Most avoided eye contact, but she caught glimpses of discomfort on some of their faces. Not everyone approved of what was happening, but no one intervened. "Washington visitor," a female deputy announced around hour 22. Maya was led to an interview room where a young officer waited. His nameplate read, Garcia. He looked uncomfortable, glancing toward the door repeatedly. "Commander Washington, I'm Officer Garcia. I just wanted to check if you need anything." Maya studied him carefully. "I need to know why I've been held for nearly 24 hours without charges or a phone call." Garcia lowered his voice. "Look, I can't officially say anything, but you should know that Deputy Reynolds has a reputation, especially with minorities who he thinks are getting above their station. Last month, it was a black doctor who questioned him during a traffic stop. Before that, a Hispanic business owner who filed a complaint. And no one stops him?" Garcia's eyes darted to the door again. "Reynolds has friends in high places. His uncle was sheriff for 20 years before retiring. Current Chief Parker was his training officer. They protect their own." "What about the teenager who was being detained?" "Marcus Johnson, released to his mother. No charges filed." Garcia hesitated. "But Reynolds has had run-ins with him before. Seems to target the kid." The door opened abruptly, and Garcia straightened, his expression immediately neutral. "Chief." Parker entered, a heavy-set man with thinning gray hair and cold eyes. "That'll be all, Garcia," Parker said dismissively. The young officer nodded and left quickly. Chief Parker sat across from Maya, placing a folder between them. "Lieutenant Commander Washington. Impressive record. Special operations. Classified missions. Medals I'm not even allowed to know the names of." He closed the folder. "Makes me Wonder why someone like you would come to a place like Riverdale and immediately start causing trouble. I was addressing what appeared to be excessive force against a minor, Maya replied evenly. Parker's smile didn't reach his eyes. What you were doing was interfering with officers performing their duty, resisting arrest, and attempting to incite public disorder. None of that is true, and you know it. It's your word against decorated officers of the law. Parker leaned forward. Let me be clear, Commander. We don't take kindly to outsiders coming in and telling us how to do our jobs. Military credentials don't give you special privileges here. And what about my constitutional rights? 24 hours without charges or a phone call. Administrative delays happen sometimes. Parker shrugged. But since you mention it, you're being charged with obstruction of justice, resisting arrest, and disorderly conduct. Judge Harrison will see you tomorrow morning for arraignment. I want my phone call. Parker checked his watch theatrically. Well, would you look at that? Visiting hours are almost over, maybe tomorrow. After Parker left, Maya was returned to her cell. An hour later, a different deputy appeared. Phone. Call, he said curtly. Maya was escorted to a wall-mounted phone. She dialed one of the few numbers she had memorized. Lieutenant James Chen speaking. James, it's Maya Washington. Maya? What's going on? You were supposed to check in yesterday. Quickly, Maya explained the situation, keeping her voice low and steady. I need a lawyer, someone with experience in civil rights cases. I'm on it. Sit tight and don't say anything more to them. I'll be there as soon as possible. The next morning, Maya was finally released on bail with excessive restrictions. She couldn't leave the county, had to check in daily with the probation office, and was forbidden from contacting any witnesses to her arrest. As she collected her belongings, she immediately checked her phone. The video she had started to record before Reynolds stopped her, the one that would have shown the entire interaction, had been deleted. Technical glitch, the property clerk said with a smirk when she inquired about it. Outside the detention center, Lieutenant James Chen waited beside a rental car. Of Chinese-American descent, Chen had worked with Maya on 3 separate deployments. He was one of the few people she trusted implicitly. You look like hell, he said by way of greeting. Good to see you too, Maya replied with a tired smile. As they drove toward Maya's grandmother's house, Chen updated her on what he'd discovered. I did some digging on this Deputy Reynolds. He's got a pattern of targeting minorities, especially successful ones. Multiple complaints filed, all dismissed. And get this, the footage from his body camera during your arrest? Mysteriously corrupted. Maya wasn't surprised. What about my case? Chen's expression darkened. That's where it gets worse. I got hold of the official report. Reynolds is claiming you assaulted him during the arrest. Says you attempted to strike him and had to be forcibly restrained. That's a complete fabrication. I know, but it's your word against his. And in this town. Chen didn't need to finish the thought. Maya stared out the window at the town she'd once called home, now feeling like enemy territory. This wasn't the kind of battle she'd been trained for, but it was one she couldn't walk away from. Not anymore. The Riverdale County Courthouse stood like a fortress of another era, its imposing columns and weathered stone speaking to traditions that had remained unchanged for generations. Maya Washington ascended the steps beside her attorney, Captain Teresa Alvarez, a military lawyer Chen had arranged through Navy JAG. Remember, let me do the talking, Alvarez whispered as they passed through security. Judge Harrison has a reputation for running a tight courtroom and favoring law enforcement. Maya nodded, maintaining her composed exterior despite the storm brewing inside. She had faced death in combat zones around the world, yet somehow this battle on American soil felt more perilous. Here, the enemy didn't wear a uniform or carry a weapon you could see. Here, the threat was woven into the very system designed to protect justice. The courtroom was already filled when they entered. Maya recognized several officers from the detention center sitting together in a show of solidarity. Deputy Reynolds sat at the prosecution table, looking confident and relaxed. When he noticed Maya, his lips curled into a subtle smirk. All rise, the bailiff announced as Judge Harrison entered. an older white man with steel gray hair and deeply etched frown lines. The proceedings began with clinical efficiency. Charges were read, pleas entered. Captain Alvarez immediately moved for dismissal based on lack of evidence and Maya's distinguished service record. Your Honor, Lieutenant Commander Washington has served this country with distinction for 15 years. She has received commendations that speak to her character and judgment. The charges against her are not only unsubstantiated, but contradict everything in her service record. Judge Harrison peered over his reading glasses. The military service of the defendant, while commendable, does not place her above the law, Counselor. The prosecutor, a young assistant district attorney named Mitchell, presented the police report and called Deputy Reynolds as his first witness. Reynolds took the stand with practiced ease, his uniform crisp, his demeanor professional. He recounted a version of events so distorted that Maya had to clench her fists to maintain composure. The defendant aggressively approached officers during a legitimate investigation, Reynolds testified. When instructed to step back, she became confrontational, identifying herself as military personnel, as if that granted her special authority. And what happened when you attempted to place her under arrest? The prosecutor asked. She resisted, attempted to reach for something in her pocket. Given her military background and aggressive demeanor, I had to consider the possibility of a concealed weapon. When I secured her hands, she continued to resist, requiring forceful restraint techniques. Maya leaned toward Alvarez. He's lying under oath, she whispered furiously. I know, Alvarez replied softly, but we need to stay calm. As Reynolds' testimony continued, Maya noticed something disturbing. The deputy was careful to never use explicitly racist language, but his description of her was littered with coded terms. Aggressive, threatening, non-compliant, displayed an attitude. Terms commonly used to characterize black individuals, especially black women who dared to question authority. She exhibited classic signs of aggression, Reynolds continued, looking directly at Maya. Raised voice, confrontational stance, disregard for lawful orders. In my experience, individuals with military training can be particularly dangerous when they feel their authority is challenged. When it was Alvarez's turn for cross-examination, she methodically highlighted the inconsistencies in Reynolds' story, emphasizing the missing body camera footage and the fact that no weapon had been found. So you're asking this court to believe that a decorated Navy SEAL, with 15 years of distinguished service and training in protocol and discipline, suddenly decided to assault a police officer in broad daylight? Alvarez asked. Military personnel aren't immune to bad judgment, Reynolds replied smoothly. In fact, sometimes they think their training puts them above civilian law enforcement. Judge Harrison interrupted. Let's stick to the facts of the case, not speculations about military personnel in general. As the prosecution called more officers to corroborate Reynolds' account, Maya felt her hope diminishing. Each testimony built upon the others, creating a narrative that portrayed her as the aggressor. Without her phone video or independent witnesses, it was becoming a wall of blue testimony against her word. Then Reynolds was recalled to the stand for additional questions, and something inside Maya shifted as she heard his next words. People, like the defendant, need to understand that their accomplishments don't place them above the law, Reynolds said, his voice dripping with condescension. When individuals from certain communities achieve success, they often develop an inflated sense of entitlement. Maya felt her blood boil at the thinly veiled racism, but it was his next statement that pushed her over the edge. If anything, someone who wears our nation's uniform should know better than to disrespect those who protect their own communities. In my opinion, the defendant dishonors the uniform she claims to wear so proudly. Before Alvarez could object, Maya was on her feet. Permission to address the court, Your Honor. Judge Harrison frowned. Ms. Washington, your counsel speaks for you in this courtroom. With all due respect, Your Honor, I cannot sit silently while my service is impugned and false statements are made under oath. The courtroom fell silent. Harrison studied her for a long moment. Very well. Briefly. Maya stood at attention, her posture impeccable, her voice clear and controlled. I have served this country in ways and places I am not at liberty to discuss. I have stood beside brothers and sisters of all races and backgrounds, united by our commitment to protect the constitutional rights of every American citizen, the same rights that were violated during my arrest and detention. She turned slightly to face the gallery. What happened that day was a clear abuse of power. The young man being detained had committed no crime. My only action was to inquire about the situation, as any concerned citizen has the right to do. At no point did I resist arrest or attempt to assault Deputy Reynolds. Reynolds rose from his seat. Your Honor, this is inappropriate. The truth is inappropriate, Deputy, Maya continued, her voice rising slightly. The truth that your body camera footage mysteriously corrupted, that my phone video was deleted while in police custody, that you specifically target successful minorities in this community. Enough! Judge Harrison slammed his gavel. Ms. Washington, you will resume your seat or be held in contempt. Maya stood her ground. The Constitution I swore to protect guarantees equal justice under law. What I've experienced in Riverdale is the opposite of justice. It's systematic intimidation and discrimination. Reynolds moved toward her. Sit down now. Deputy, Harrison warned, return to your seat. Bailiff, please ensure the defendant sits down. As the bailiff approached, Maya remained standing. This court should be a sanctuary of justice, not a tool for perpetuating discrimination. I cannot in good conscience. What happened next occurred so quickly that many in the courtroom would later give conflicting accounts. Reynolds lunged forward, grabbing Maya's arm. When she instinctively straightened her posture, he shoved her hard. Maya, unprepared for the assault in open court, lost her balance and fell. Before she could right herself, Reynolds' boot connected with her side. You people need to learn respect, he snarled, loud enough for the front rows to hear. Blood trickled from Maya's split lip where she had bitten it during the fall. Judge Harrison's gavel slammed repeatedly as chaos erupted in the courtroom. Captain Alvarez was shouting for order, spectators were on their feet, and court security rushed forward. Maya looked up from the cold marble floor, tasting blood, watching Reynolds standing over her with his boot still raised for another kick. In that moment, something crystallized within her. This wasn't just about her case anymore. It was about every person who had faced similar injustice without the resources or platform to fight back. What do you think should happen next? Would you have stood your ground like Maya did? Or would you have stayed silent to protect yourself? Comment number 1, if you believe Maya was right to speak truth to power, even at great personal cost. Comment number 2, if you think she should have strategically waited for a better opportunity. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you believe everyone deserves equal justice under the law, regardless of their race or background. The question remains, with the system so stacked against her, how will Maya find justice when the very people sworn to uphold the law are breaking it to destroy her? The Riverdale County Detention Center's isolation cell measured 8 feet by 10 feet. A concrete slab with a thin mattress served as a bed. A stainless steel toilet sink combination unit occupied one corner. No window, no clock. The fluorescent light remained on day and night, making it impossible to track the passage of time. Maya Washington sat cross-legged on the mattress, eyes closed, breathing controlled. To an observer, she might have appeared defeated. They would have been wrong. In her mind, Maya was mapping out the battlefield, identifying assets, assessing vulnerabilities, planning contingencies. The skills that had kept her alive in hostile territory were now focused on a different kind of war. The heavy cell door creaked open. "Visitor," announced the guard. In the visitation room, Lieutenant James Chen waited, his expression grave. Maya noted the dark circles under his eyes and the tension in his shoulders. "You look worse than I do," she commented as she sat across from him. Chen attempted a smile but failed. "That's debatable. How are you holding up?" "I've had worse accommodations." Maya leaned forward. "What's happening outside?" Chen's expression darkened further. "It's not good, Maya. The Navy is distancing itself from the situation. Official statement says they're monitoring the legal proceedings but essentially calls it a personal matter unrelated to your service." Maya had expected as much. Military bureaucracy moved slowly, and no one wanted to be associated with controversy. What about the media coverage? That's even worse. Chen slid a printout across the table. It was a local newspaper article with the headline, "Military Officer Attacks Local Deputy in Courtroom Outburst." Maya scanned the article quickly. The bias was unmistakable. She was portrayed as an angry, aggressive woman who had disrespected the court and attacked an officer attempting to restore order. There was no mention of Reynolds kicking her while she was down. "The national outlets haven't picked it up much yet," Chen continued, "but the local coverage is shaping the narrative. They're painting you as the angry black woman," Maya finished for him. "I'm familiar with the stereotype." Chen nodded grimly. "Judge Harrison has added contempt of court charges on top of everything else. Your bail has been revoked. Alvarez is filing appeals, but Harrison is fast-tracking the case." Maya processed this information silently. Then, "I need you to contact someone for me. Sarah Martinez." Chen's eyebrows rose. "Your former team member? The one who went to justice?" "The same. She's working in the Civil Rights Division now. This is exactly the kind of case she handles." "Maya, bringing in the federal government will escalate this beyond." "It's already escalated, James. Reynolds kicked me in open court and is still walking free. This isn't just about me anymore." Maya's voice was calm but resolute. "Martinez has resources we need, and she owes me." Chen didn't ask for details. In their line of work, some debts were understood, without explanation. "I'll reach out," he promised. "What else do you need?" "Information. I need to know everything about Reynolds, his history, his connections, his vulnerabilities, and I need to know who else has encountered him. There will be others. I'll do what I can." "But Maya," Chen hesitated. "Reynolds has powerful friends, Chief Parker, Judge Harrison. Word is they're all part of some kind of old boys network that runs this county. Going after one means going after all of them." Maya thought of the young boy Marcus Johnson, terrified as officers surrounded him. She thought of the doctor and business owner Garcia had mentioned. How many others had been silenced? "Then we go after all of them," she said simply. After Chen left, Maya was escorted back to her cell. As she passed through the common area, a female inmate called out to her, "Hey, Navy, heard you stood up to Reynolds." Maya paused, looking at the woman, late 20s, Latina, with intelligent eyes that seemed out of place in the detention center. "I'm Lucia," the woman continued. "My boyfriend works maintenance at the courthouse. Everyone's talking about what happened." Guards began moving toward them, but Lucia quickly added, "Courthouse has cameras everywhere. Security office, basement level. Footage kept for 30 days. Before Maya could respond, guards separated them. "No fraternizing. Back to your cell, Washington." That night, lying on the thin mattress under the never-dimming lights, Maya added this new information to her mental map. Courthouse security. Footage would show exactly what happened in that courtroom. If she could access it before it mysteriously corrupted like Reynolds' body camera, her thoughts were interrupted by a guard opening her cell door. "Washington, Chief Parker wants to see you." In an interview room, Parker waited with another man in an expensive suit. "Commander Washington, this is District Attorney William Hobson." The DA didn't offer his hand. "Commander, I'll be brief. The charges against you are serious. Assaulting a peace officer carries substantial penalties in our state." "I didn't assault anyone," Maya replied calmly. "Deputy Reynolds attacked me in open court." Parker laughed. "That's not what the witnesses say. Judge Harrison himself will testify that you became aggressive and Reynolds acted to protect the court." "We're prepared to offer a deal," Hobson interjected. "Plead guilty to disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. We drop the assault charge. 6 months probation. You leave Riverdale immediately after, and this all goes away." Maya studied them both. "And if I refuse?" "Then we proceed with all charges, including the new assault charges from the courtroom incident," Hobson stated, flatly. "Given the witnesses in your outburst, conviction is likely. You'd be looking at 5 to 7 years. Your military career would be over. Your benefits, your pension, all gone." The threat hung in the air between them. Maya understood the editorial stakes perfectly. This was their attempt to make the problem disappear quickly and quietly. "I need time to consider," she said finally. 24 hours, Hobson replied, standing. "After that, the deal is off the table." After they left, Maya was returned to her cell. Hours later, during the night shift when the cell block was quieter, a different guard appeared at her door. "Message from Lucia," he said quietly, slipping a note through the meal slot before continuing his rounds. Maya unfolded the paper carefully. "Boyfriend says footage automatically backs up to server in admin building. Access code keypad 5283. Martinez called for you. She's coming." Maya felt something she hadn't experienced since being arrested. Hope. She wasn't alone in this fight anymore. Resources were mobilizing. Intelligence was flowing. The next morning, a guard Maya hadn't seen before delivered her breakfast tray. "Hearing's been moved up. New courtroom, new judge. Word is they want to make an example of you." Maya wasn't surprised. Reynolds and his network were accelerating their timeline, trying to lock everything down before outside forces could intervene. What they didn't understand was that they were no longer dealing with just Maya Washington, private citizen. They were now facing Lieutenant Commander Washington, Navy SEAL, a woman trained to operate behind enemy lines, to adapt, improvise, and overcome against superior forces. As she prepared for transport to the new hearing, Maya received another shock. The news playing on the common area television reported that assault charges against her had been approved by a grand jury in record time. The reporter noted that such rapid approval was unusual, but not unprecedented in cases involving attacks on law enforcement. The system was moving with astonishing speed to bury her. But Maya had survived when the odds were far worse than this, and now she knew two crucial pieces of information: the location of unaltered evidence and the fact that Sarah Martinez was on her way. The battlefield was taking shape. The enemy had revealed their strategy, and Maya Washington was finally ready to fight back. The conditions of Maya Washington's release were unprecedented in their severity. The ankle monitor felt heavy and foreign against her skin, its green light blinking steadily as a constant reminder of her restricted freedom. She was confined to her grandmother's property except for scheduled check-ins with the probation office. No contact with potential witnesses, no travel beyond county lines, a curfew that required her to be inside from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. "They're treating you like you're a terrorism suspect, not someone who questioned a police officer," Lieutenant Chen remarked as they sat at Maya's grandmother's kitchen table, the morning sun streaming through lace curtains that had hung there for decades. Maya unconsciously adjusted the ankle monitor. "That's the point. They want me to feel powerless." Chen had been busy during the 48 hours since Maya's release. Laptop open, he scrolled through documents. "I've been digging into Reynolds's history. 17 complaints filed against him in the past 5 years, all dismissed or ruled unfounded. But the pattern is clear. He targets successful minorities almost exclusively. And the power structure protects him," Maya finished. "It's more than protection. It's endorsement." Chen pointed to a series of commendations in Reynolds's file. "He's been promoted twice since the complaint started. Received Officer of the Year last year. Someone's actively rewarding his behavior." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Chen answered, then stepped aside to reveal a woman with copper-brown skin, dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, and eyes that missed nothing. "Special Agent Sarah Martinez, Justice Department, Civil Rights Division," she introduced herself, displaying credentials. "Lieutenant Commander Washington, it's been a while." Maya stood to embrace her former teammate. 3 years, 2 months. Not that I'm counting. Martinez returned the hug briefly before getting down to business. "Your situation is exactly why I left the Teams for Justice. Systemic abuse of power targeting minorities. Classic civil rights violation pattern." "Can you help?" Chen asked. Martinez set her briefcase on the table. "Officially, I'm here to observe and gather information for potential federal interest. Unofficially." She smiled thinly. "I'm here to build a case that will burn Reynolds and his entire network to the ground." For the next several hours, the three of them strategized. Martinez had brought surveillance equipment and secure communication, devices that wouldn't be monitored like Maya's court-restricted phone. First priority is securing the courthouse security footage before it disappears, Martinez stated. My team is working through legal channels, but given what we're seeing, I'm not optimistic they'll comply with official requests. Lucia's boyfriend mentioned an access code for the admin building server, Maya said. 5283. Good start, but we need more than just access. We need someone who can navigate their system, find the files and extract them without leaving evidence of tampering. Martinez typed a note into her secure tablet. I have someone in mind. What about the teenager from the original incident? Chen asked. Marcus Johnson. His testimony could contradict Reynolds' entire narrative. Maya shook her head. Reynolds has been targeting him. He'll be terrified. We need to try, Martinez insisted. Victim testimony is powerful, especially from a minor. I can offer witness protection if necessary. As they continued planning, Maya noticed the lights in her house flicker, then go out completely. Power outage, Chen wondered. Maya checked her phone. No service. Not a coincidence. Martinez was already moving to the window, peering through the curtains cautiously. Your utilities are being cut. Standard intimidation tactic. They're escalating. Within hours, Maya's water was also shut off. Her credit card stopped working. Her military bank account showed a security hold. When Chen drove to the grocery store, he returned with disturbing news. People are avoiding me. The cashier refused to make eye contact. Something's happening in town. Maya's neighbor, an elderly white woman who had been friendly since Maya's arrival, appeared at the property line that afternoon. I can't be seen talking to you, she said nervously, pretending to inspect her flower bed. They're saying you're dangerous, that you have connections to anti-government groups. The sheriff's department has been warning everyone to keep their distance. That's absurd, Maya replied, maintaining the pretense of casual conversation. Maybe so, but people are scared. Just be careful. The woman retreated quickly to her home. Martinez wasn't surprised when informed. Classic character assassination. They're isolating you, cutting off support systems, making you toxic to anyone who might help. That evening, as they ate dinner by candlelight, Maya made a decision. I need to find Marcus Johnson. His testimony could change everything. You're under court order not to contact witnesses, Chen reminded her. Which is exactly why they added that condition, Maya countered. They're hiding something, and Marcus knows what it is. Using Martinez's secure equipment, they located the Johnson family residence, a modest apartment in Riverdale's east side. Despite the risks, Maya insisted on going herself. My ankle monitor, she pointed out. They'll know if I leave the property. Martinez smiled for the first time since arriving. Not if you're using one of these. She produced what looked like an identical monitoring device. Clones the signal. As far as their system is concerned, you never left your grandmother's kitchen. The visit to the Johnson home was brief and disappointing. Marcus's mother, eyes wide with fear, refused to open the door beyond a security chain. Please, we can't talk to you, she whispered. They said they'd take Marcus away if we got involved. Said they found drugs in his backpack. Did they? Were there drugs? Maya asked gently. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Of course not. Marcus is a good boy, but they said who would believe us over them. Please, just go. I can't lose my son. Returning to the house, Maya felt the weight of defeat. Reynolds has everyone terrified. No one will speak against him. Then we find evidence that speaks for itself, Martinez replied firmly. The security footage is still our best option. The next morning brought a new development. A journalist named Elena Diaz contacted Chen through secure channels Martinez had established. I've been tracking police misconduct in small towns across 3 states, Diaz explained over the encrypted line. Reynolds' name has come up before, but victims always go silent before I can publish anything substantial. Can you meet? Martinez asked. Not in Riverdale. I'm persona non grata there after my last attempt to investigate Chief Parker. But I'm in the next county over. I have files you should see. The meeting was arranged for that evening at a diner 30 miles outside Riverdale. Maya would have to violate her confinement restrictions, but the potential intelligence was worth the risk. Just as preparations were being finalized, Maya's front door exploded inward. Black-clad officers poured through, weapons drawn, shouting orders. "Police! Everybody down! Search warrant!" Maya, Chen, and Martinez were forced to the floor, hands zip-tied behind them. Through the chaos, Maya spotted Reynolds sauntering in, looking immensely satisfied. Well, what do we have here, a little conspiracy?" He squatted beside Maya. "Anonymous tip that you're harboring weapons. Very concerning given your violent history." "There are no weapons here," Maya said evenly. "This is harassment and you know it." Reynolds chuckled, standing again. "We'll see what we find. Oh, and look at this." He pointed to Martinez's equipment. "Unauthorized communication devices. Surveillance equipment. Seems like someone's violating the terms of their release." As the officers continued ransacking the house, Reynolds leaned down again. "Did you really think you could win against me? Washington? This is my town. These are my people. You're just passing through." Maya met his gaze steadily. "Justice always comes for men like you eventually." Reynolds' smile vanished. He nodded to the officers holding Maya. "Resisting arrest. Take her in." "She's not resisting," Chen protested. "She will be," Reynolds replied coldly. Then to Maya, "Resist, and I shoot your friends for interfering with police business. Your choice." Maya had faced impossible scenarios. In combat, situations where every option led to potential disaster. This was no different. She made the tactical decision: protect her allies, live to fight another day. The officers roughly pulled her to her feet. One officer, his nameplate, reading Davis, twisted her arm with unnecessary force. Maya instinctively tensed but did not resist. "Not enough," Reynolds said. "Davis, make sure she resists." Understanding dawned in Maya's eyes a split second before Davis delivered a savage blow to her kidneys. Her body bucked involuntarily against the pain. "There we go," Reynolds said with satisfaction. "Got it all on body cam. Commander Washington resisting arrest, assaulting officers. That should add a few years to her sentence." As Maya was dragged from her own home, she caught a glimpse of Martinez and Chen still restrained on the floor. Martinez gave an almost imperceptible nod. The message was clear. This is bad, but not over. Outside, Reynolds made sure Maya was handled roughly as she was placed in the patrol car. The neighbors watched from their windows and porches, bearing witness but too afraid to intervene. "You're making a fatal mistake, Reynolds," Maya said quietly as he slammed the car door. "No, Commander," he replied through the window. "You did that when you set foot in my town thinking you were better than us." Reynolds couldn't have known that Maya Washington had spent her career turning fatal mistakes, both hers and her enemies, into opportunities. As the patrol car pulled away, her mind was already calculating the next move on this unexpected battlefield. The second courtroom was smaller than the first, more modern, with harsh fluorescent lighting that cast everyone in an unflattering pallor. Maya Washington sat at the defense table beside a public defender named Harold Wilson, a tired-looking man in his 50s with a perpetual expression of defeat etched on his face. "Mr. Wilson," Maya whispered, "I need to explain what really happened." "Save it," Wilson interrupted without looking up from his paperwork. "I've got 23 other cases today. Just follow my lead and take whatever deal they offer." Maya realized immediately that Wilson was part of the system, not a defender against it. Captain Alvarez had been barred from representing her, citing a technicality about military council jurisdiction. Chen and Martinez were both being held for questioning, unable to help. This was exactly what Reynolds and his network had planned: complete isolation. The new judge, a woman named Elaine Crawford, entered the courtroom. Unlike Harrison's theatrical demeanor, Judge Crawford was coldly efficient, her expression betraying nothing as she reviewed the case file. New charges of resisting arrest, assaulting officers during execution of a legal search warrant, violation of release conditions through possession of unauthorized communication equipment. She read mechanically. How does the defendant plead? Before Wilson could speak, Maya stood. Your Honor, I'd like to address the court regarding these fabricated charges. Judge Crawford's eyes narrowed slightly. You are represented by counsel, Ms. Washington. Mr. Wilson will speak for you. My counsel has informed me he has 23 other cases today and has advised me to take whatever deal they offer. I do not believe this constitutes adequate representation. Wilson tugged at her sleeve. Sit down, he hissed. You're making it worse? Crawford's mouth tightened. Mr. Wilson, do you wish to be relieved of this case? Wilson straightened. No, Your Honor. I'm fully prepared to represent Ms. Washington. Then control your client, or I'll hold her in contempt. Again. The judge turned to the prosecutor, the same Mitchell who had prosecuted her first case. Does the state wish to be heard on bail? Mitchell stood, radiating confidence. The state recommends remand, Your Honor. The defendant has demonstrated repeated contempt for legal authority, violated the terms of her previous release, and poses a flight risk given her military connections. Judge Crawford nodded as if this were all expected. Bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial, which is scheduled for... She consulted her calendar. Next Thursday. Maya couldn't hide her surprise. Next Thursday? That's only 7 days away. My counsel needs time to prepare a defense. The court calendar is what it is, Ms. Washington, Crawford replied dismissively. Mr. Wilson, if you need more time with your client, I suggest you find it between your other 23 cases. The proceedings continued with mechanical precision. Every motion Wilson half-heartedly raised was denied. Every prosecution request was granted. Maya recognized the choreography of a predetermined outcome. When Reynolds took the stand to testify about the raid on her grandmother's house, he delivered his lines with polished conviction. The anonymous tip about weapons. Maya's aggressive response to lawful commands. The incriminating surveillance equipment discovered during the search. Wilson's cross-examination was perfunctory at best. He asked basic questions that allowed Reynolds to further embellish his narrative without challenging any of the obvious inconsistencies. No further questions, Wilson concluded after barely 5 minutes. Mr. Wilson, Maya insisted, ask him about the body camera footage. Ask why. Chen and Martinez were detained without charges. Ask about the pattern of complaints against him. Wilson ignored her, shuffling papers as if she hadn't spoken. As the hearing continued, Maya noticed something unusual. Martinez had been brought into the courtroom by 2 officers and seated in the gallery. Their eyes met briefly, Martinez giving a subtle head tilt toward the exit. Something was happening. Judge Crawford was summarizing her findings when the courtroom doors opened. A tall black man in an impeccable suit entered, followed by 2 people who screamed federal agents in their bearing and attire. Your Honor, the man announced, I'm Special Prosecutor Terrence Washington from the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. I'm here to inform the court that the United States is assuming jurisdiction in this matter effective immediately. Crawford's composure cracked for the first time. This is highly irregular, Mr. Washington. This court is in session. This court is conducting proceedings that directly interfere with a federal civil rights investigation, the special prosecutor countered, approaching the bench and handing over documents. These are the transfer orders, signed by the federal district judge. Maya watched in astonishment as Crawford reviewed the papers, her expression darkening. Reynolds had half risen from his seat, his face contorted with fury. This is outside. Interference in local matters, the prosecutor Mitchell objected. This is federal law superseding local jurisdiction in a civil rights matter, Special Prosecutor Washington corrected firmly. Lieutenant Commander Washington will be released to federal custody immediately. Reynolds couldn't contain himself any longer. This is bullshit. She's facing serious criminal charges here. Deputy Reynolds, Crawford warned, trying to regain control of her courtroom. Charges that will be thoroughly reviewed as part of our investigation, the special prosecutor stated, turning to face Reynolds directly, along with numerous other complaints against the Riverdale Sheriff's Department. Crawford knew she was beaten. Federal authority trumped her courtroom, and the paperwork was in order. This court recognizes the federal jurisdiction claim. The defendant is released to federal custody. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel fell with finality. The federal agents moved to Maya's side, helping her to her feet. Reynolds watched, seething, as she was escorted past him. "This isn't over," he hissed. "On that we agree," Maya replied quietly. Outside the courthouse, Maya was reunited with Chen and Martinez, who had also been released. "How?" Maya asked, as they hurried toward an unmarked SUV. "Martinez had already alerted her superiors before the raid," Chen explained. "When we were detained, it triggered the federal response." "We don't have much time," Martinez added. "The federal jurisdiction is only temporary while the Justice Department reviews the case. Reynolds and his network have connections in state government. They'll pressure federal authorities to return jurisdiction." "Then we use every minute we have," Maya said as they climbed into the vehicle. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere they won't look for us," Martinez answered cryptically. As they drove away from the courthouse, Maya caught sight of Reynolds watching from the steps, his expression promising retribution. For the first time since her ordeal began, she felt a momentary advantage. But she knew better than most how quickly battlefield conditions could change. The momentum had shifted, but the war was far from over. Reynolds had powerful allies, deep community influence, and the weight of an entrenched system behind him. What Maya had was training, determination, and now, finally, some reinforcements. The question was whether it would be enough to overcome the corrupted justice system that had protected Reynolds for so long. The unmarked SUV wound through back roads for nearly an hour, heading away from Riverdale into densely forested areas that Maya didn't recognize. Martinez maintained radio silence, checking mirrors regularly for any sign of pursuit. Finally, they turned onto an almost invisible dirt track that led to what appeared to be an abandoned ranger station deep in the woods. "What is this place?" Maya asked as they parked behind the weathered structure. "Off-the-book safe house," Martinez explained. "Justice Department uses it for protected witnesses in sensitive cases." Inside, the rustic exterior gave way to surprisingly modern facilities. Secure communications equipment, computer workstations, and tactical gear filled what had once been a visitor center. 4 agents were already at work, analyzing documents and monitoring communications. Commander Washington, a tall woman with close-cropped gray hair, approached, extending her hand. "Agent Diana Cooper, FBI Civil Rights Division. We've been following your situation with great interest." "Following but not intervening until now," Maya noted, accepting the handshake. Cooper didn't flinch at the criticism. "Federal intervention in local matters requires substantial justification. Your case finally provided the leverage we needed to pry open an investigation we've been building for years." "Years?" Chen asked, surprised. "Reynolds isn't just a problem in Riverdale," Cooper explained, leading them to a situation room where the walls were covered with photos, maps, and timelines. "He's part of a network that extends across 3 counties, systematic civil rights violations targeting minorities, particularly successful ones who might challenge the status quo." Maya studied the display, noting faces she recognized. Judge Harrison, Chief Parker, Judge Crawford, connected by lines to dozens of others she didn't know. "How deep does this go?" she asked. "Deep enough that we've had 4 previous investigations shut down by political pressure from above," Cooper replied grimly. "That's why we need your case to be airtight. You're a decorated Navy SEAL with an ISAT's impeccable record. If they can do this to you and get away with it, then no one is safe." Maya finished. Martinez joined them at the display. Commander Washington's transport to county lockup never arrived. Reynolds has already put out an all-points bulletin claiming federal agents assaulted local officers and abducted a dangerous prisoner. Maya wasn't surprised. He's framing it as federal overreach playing to local resentments. "Exactly," Cooper confirmed. "And it's working. State police have been mobilized to locate you. The governor's office is pressuring justice to return you to local custody. So I'm essentially a fugitive," Maya said, the gravity of the situation sinking in. "A protected witness in federal custody," Cooper corrected firmly. "But yes, Local authorities are treating you as a fugitive, which means we need to work fast to build our case before political pressure forces our hand." The next hours passed, in a blur of activity. Maya provided detailed statements about every interaction with Reynolds and the Riverdale justice system. Chen contributed his observations and research. Martinez outlined the pattern of civil rights violations they'd begun to document. During a brief break, Maya stepped outside for some fresh air, her first taste of freedom without an ankle monitor in days. Cooper joined her on the small porch. "You should know," Cooper said quietly. "We intercepted communications indicating Reynolds had arranged for something to happen to you in county lockup, an accident that would have been difficult to trace back to him." The information settled coldly in Maya's stomach. "He was going to have me killed." Cooper nodded. "He's done it before. We have suspicions about 3 deaths in custody over the past 5 years, all minorities who challenged his authority in some way. But proving it has been nearly impossible." Maya thought of the teenager, Marcus Johnson, and his terrified mother. They're not just oppressing people, they're running a reign of terror. "Which is why your case matters so much," Cooper emphasized. "Your profile, your record, it shines a national spotlight that makes it harder for them to operate in the shadows." Their conversation was interrupted by Martinez bursting through the door. "We found him," the journalist Elena Diaz mentioned. "He's willing to talk." Back inside, they gathered around a secure video connection. The screen showed a young man, early 20s, his face partially obscured by the camera angle. "This is David Morris," Martinez introduced him. "He's been documenting police misconduct in Riverdale for a community activism blog." "Mr. Morris has evidence directly related to your case, Commander," Cooper added. The young man spoke, his voice tense with nervous energy. "I was there the day you were arrested, Commander Washington. Outside the library. I caught the whole thing on video from across the street." Maya felt a surge of hope. "You have footage of my interaction with Reynolds?" "Everything from when you first approached the officers to when Reynolds put you in his car. I didn't come forward earlier because..." He hesitated. "Reynolds has targeted me before, arrested me at protests, confiscated my equipment. Last time, he threatened my family." "Your footage could be crucial evidence," Cooper said. "Can you transfer the files securely?" "Already did," Morris replied. "Sent them to Agent Martinez's encrypted drop. But there's more. I've been tracking Reynolds for 2 years, documented dozens of cases of harassment and rights violations, all targeting minorities who were succeeding in some way. Business owners, professionals, students with scholarships." "Why specifically successful minorities?" Chen asked. Morris's expression hardened. "Reynolds has a philosophy. He's shared it with other officers. Believes that certain communities need to know their place. That social order depends on maintaining natural hierarchies." "White supremacy dressed up in policy language," Maya translated. "Exactly," Morris confirmed. "And it extends beyond Reynolds. The whole power structure in Riverdale enforces it. Judges, prosecutors, business leaders, they're all part of what they call the Fellowship." Cooper and Martinez exchanged glances. "We've heard that name in other investigations," Cooper noted. "An informal network of officials across several southern states who share these views." The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about one racist cop or one corrupted town. It was an organized system spanning multiple jurisdictions. The briefing was interrupted by an agent rushing in. "We've got movement, multiple vehicles approaching from the main road." Cooper moved immediately to the surveillance monitors. "How did they find us?" "They're running search patterns," Martinez observed, studying the tactical display. "They don't know exactly where we are, but they're narrowing it down." "How long do we have?" Maya asked. "Minutes, not hours," Cooper replied grimly. "We need to evacuate." As the team rapidly packed essential equipment, Maya made a decision. "I need to stay behind." "Absolutely not," Chen objected. "If Reynolds finds you here..." "He won't find me," Maya assured him. "But he needs to believe I was here. While he's focused on this location, you can get the evidence to safety." Cooper understood immediately. A diversion. Give us time to secure our files and witnesses. I'm trained for this, Maya reminded them. Operating behind enemy lines, evading capture, creating distractions. This is what SEALs do. Martinez recognized the determination in her former teammate's eyes. You're sure about this? Positive, but I need something first. Maya turned to Morris on the video connection. Your footage. Does it clearly show Reynolds fabricating charges against me? Crystal clear, Morris confirmed. Shows you being respectful, him escalating, the whole thing. Good. I need that footage, and I need to know about the courthouse, security system, how to access it, where the servers are located. For the next 10 minutes, as the rest of the team prepared to evacuate, Morris briefed Maya on everything he knew about the courthouse security infrastructure, the backup server location, the access protocols, the guard rotations. Vehicles within half a mile, an agent reported urgently. Time to move, Cooper ordered. As the team loaded into vehicles at the rear of the property, Maya positioned herself, in the forest with clear sightlines to the approach road. Martinez paused beside her one last time. Don't get yourself killed, Washington. That's an order. Maya smiled grimly. Not planning on it. Get that evidence secured. I'll rendezvous at the secondary location within 24 hours. After, the team departed through a concealed back trail. Maya settled into position. Through her binoculars, she could see the approaching vehicles, a mix of local sheriff deputies and state police. Reynolds himself was in the lead car, his expression visible even at distance. Hungry, predatory, certain of victory. What he didn't know was that he was hunting a predator far more experienced than himself. Maya Washington had been trained by the best military in the world to become invisible, to move through hostile territory undetected, to survive against overwhelming odds. As Reynolds and his forces surrounded the now empty safe house, Maya slipped silently into the forest, already planning her next move. The courthouse security footage remained the key piece of evidence that could corroborate Morris's video and establish a pattern of abuses. With federal authorities buying her time, she finally had a chance to secure it. The hunter had become the hunted, though Reynolds didn't realize it yet. By the time he did, it would be too late. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt the system was rigged against you? Comment number 1 if you believe Maya is right to take matters into her own hands when the legal system fails. Comment number 2 if you think she should rely solely on federal authorities to handle the situation. This is the moment where Maya must decide whether to trust the system that has already failed her, or use her unique skills to fight back. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see justice prevail against corruption, and let us know in the comments what you would do if you were in Maya's position. The question remains, with Reynolds and his powerful network closing in, can Maya gather enough evidence to expose the truth before they silence her permanently? The Riverdale County Administration Building stood 3 blocks from the courthouse, an unremarkable 4-story brick structure that housed various government offices. What made it remarkable to Maya Washington, however, was the information Morris had provided. The building contained the backup server for the courthouse security system, automatically archiving footage every 12 hours. Maya approached the building at 2:17 a.m., having spent the day observing from concealed positions, studying guard rotations and security measures. She wore custodial staff coveralls salvaged from a supply closet at a nearby school, a laminated ID badge clipped to the pocket, close enough to pass casual inspection in the dim lighting. The side entrance used by maintenance staff was her target. Morris had explained that a single security guard monitored the building overnight, making hourly rounds that took approximately 15 minutes, leaving the security desk unattended during that time. Maya had timed the guard's previous rounds, 1:2, and now he was due for his 3 a.m. walkthrough. She had a narrow window to access the building undetected. The service entrance required a key card. Maya didn't have one, but she did have something almost as good: knowledge of the IBU system's vulnerabilities. Morris had mentioned that the maintenance supervisor frequently propped the door open during smoke breaks with a small wooden wedge. Sure enough, checking the bottom corner of the doorframe, Maya found the wedge tucked just out of sight. Slipping inside, Maya navigated the darkened hallways with practiced stealth. The server room was located in the basement, behind a door with keypad access. The code Lucia had provided through her boyfriend, 5283, made entry simple. The server room hummed with the sound of cooling fans and electronic equipment. Maya located the security server array based on Morris's description. Connecting, a small device Martinez had provided before the evacuation, she began copying the courthouse security footage from the day of her hearing. The download progress bar crept forward. 17%, 23%, 31%. A noise from the hallway froze her in place. Footsteps approaching. The guard was making his rounds earlier than expected. Maya quickly disconnected the device, though the download was only at 47%, and concealed herself behind a server rack. The door opened, light from a flashlight sweeping across the room. The guard entered, making a cursory inspection before turning to leave. Just as the door was closing, his radio crackled. "Johnson, we've got movement on the second floor, north corridor. Camera 3. Copy that. Checking now." The footsteps receded quickly. Maya waited 30 seconds before reconnecting the device. The download resumed. 47%, 53%, 68%. Time stretched agonizingly as the numbers climbed. 79%, 86%, 94%. Complete. Maya pocketed the device and prepared to exit. The information she'd downloaded contained not just her own hearing footage, but weeks of security camera data from throughout the courthouse. If Reynolds and his network had been conducting their corrupt activities there, the evidence would now be preserved. Exiting the server room, Maya retraced her path toward the service entrance. As she rounded a corner, she nearly collided with the security guard returning from his investigation. "Hey, who are you? Stop right there." Maya didn't hesitate. Using her momentum, she executed a swift takedown maneuver, pinning the guard with minimal force and covering his mouth to prevent him from calling out. "I'm not going to hurt you," she said calmly. "I just need to leave. Nod if you understand." The guard, eyes wide with fear, nodded. "I'm going to release you in 30 seconds. By then I'll be gone. You can report this, but it would be better for everyone if you didn't, especially you." She let that sink in. "The people I'm investigating don't leave loose ends. The less you know, the safer you are." The guard nodded again, more vigorously this time. Maya released him slowly, backing toward the exit. True to her word, she was gone within 30 seconds, leaving the confused guard wondering whether to report the incident and draw attention to his own security lapse. Maya made her way to a predetermined location where she had stashed civilian clothes and a prepaid phone. Changing quickly, she sent a coded text message to a number Martinez had provided. "Package secured." The response came moments later. "Rendezvous, Alpha. Aero 600. As dawn broke over Riverdale, Maya approached an abandoned gas station 10 miles outside town. A nondescript sedan waited in the overgrown lot, Martinez behind the wheel. "Any problems?" Martinez asked, as Maya slid into the passenger seat. "Minor complication with a guard, nothing serious," Maya reported, handing over the storage device. "Were you able to secure Morris's footage?" "Better than that," Martinez smiled grimly. "While Reynolds and his people were hunting for you at the safe house, our team made contact with the court clerk Cooper mentioned, Teresa Valdez. She's agreed to testify about document tampering and evidence manipulation in multiple cases involving Reynolds." What changed her mind? Fear, ironically. When she saw federal agents involved, she decided better to be on the right side of history. Martinez navigated the sedan onto a rural highway, heading north. "Between Morris's footage, the security camera evidence you just retrieved, and Valdez's testimony, we're building a solid case." "What about Chen?" Maya asked, realizing she hadn't seen her friend. "Leading another team to interview prior victims Reynolds targeted. We've identified 27 cases with similar patterns over the past 3 years." The sedan merged onto the interstate, putting distance between them and Riverdale with every passing minute. Maya felt the tension in her shoulders ease slightly as they crossed the county line. "Where are we headed?" she asked. "Federal building in Atlanta. Cooper has arranged secure facilities there to analyze the evidence and prepare the case." Martinez glanced at her. "You'll be officially in protective custody until we can ensure your safety." Maya nodded, watching the landscape blur past the window. "Reynolds won't stop coming after me, not after I've humiliated him like this." "He'll have bigger problems soon enough," Martinez assured her. "The evidence we're gathering isn't just about your case anymore. It's about exposing the entire network." At the federal building in Atlanta, a team of analysts was already processing the courthouse security footage Maya had retrieved. The conference room had been transformed into an investigation center, with timelines, photographs, and evidence, logs covering the walls. "Commander Washington," Cooper greeted her as Maya and Martinez entered. "Perfect timing. We've just discovered something significant in the footage." On a large monitor, Cooper played a clip from the courthouse security cameras. It showed Reynolds in Judge Harrison's chambers, the two men in what appeared to be a heated discussion. The video had no audio, but the body language was clear. Reynolds was demanding something, and Harrison was reluctantly agreeing. "This was taken the day before your first hearing," Cooper explained. "We believe Reynolds was instructing Harrison on how to handle your case." "Can we prove that without audio?" Maya asked. "Not definitively from this alone," Cooper admitted. "But there's more." The next clip showed Reynolds, Harrison, and several other figures Maya recognized from Cooper's network diagram: Chief Parker, Judge Crawford, D.A. Hobson, gathered in a courthouse conference room after hours. "This is what Morris called the fellowship," Cooper explained. "Regular meetings, always off the record, always after hours. We've identified similar patterns in the footage from the past several weeks." As they continued analyzing the footage, Chen arrived with additional evidence. "We've got confirmed testimony from 16 victims," he reported. "All minorities, all successful in their fields, all targeted by Reynolds with bogus charges or harassment." "And look at this," an analyst called out, gesturing to his screen. "Financial transactions between members of the fellowship and various local businesses. Looks like kickbacks for selective enforcement." The pieces were falling into place, revealing a conspiracy larger and more organized than any of them had initially suspected. Reynolds wasn't just a racist cop abusing his power. He was part of a systematic operation to maintain social and economic control through targeted harassment and legal manipulation. As the team worked through the mountain of evidence, Maya stepped away briefly, finding a quiet corner to collect her thoughts. The past week had been a whirlwind of injustice, resistance, and now, potentially, vindication. But something nagged at her, a tactical instinct honed through years of high-stakes operations. "It's coming together too neatly," she said, when Martinez joined her. "What do you mean?" "Reynolds is smart, calculating. He's evaded accountability for years," Maya explained. "He wouldn't leave such obvious evidence unless—" Martinez's expression darkened as she followed Maya's reasoning. "Unless he wanted it found eventually, a contingency plan." "Exactly. Which means—" Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion in the main conference room. Cooper was on the phone, her expression grave. "Understood. Lock down the building. Full security protocols." "What's happening?" Chen asked as Cooper ended the call. "We have a leak," Cooper announced. "Someone in the federal prosecutor's office just tipped off state officials about our investigation. The governor is preparing an emergency order to shut us down, claiming federal overreach and interference in state matters." "How much time do we have?" Martinez demanded. "Hours, not days," Cooper replied grimly. "We need to secure all evidence immediately and transfer everything to Justice Department headquarters in Washington." As the team scrambled to protect their investigation, Maya pulled Martinez and Chen aside. "The digital evidence is important, but Reynolds knows that. What if there's something else? Something physical we're missing?" Chen considered this. "The teenager, Marcus Johnson. You said his mother mentioned planted drugs." "False evidence," Maya nodded, "which means there could be real evidence that was suppressed." Martinez caught on immediately. Reynolds and his network would need somewhere to store anything that might incriminate them if discovered, somewhere secure but accessible. Somewhere only they control, Maya added, thinking aloud. Not the evidence room at the station. Too many eyes. Not their homes. Too risky. A spark of recognition lit Chen's eyes. The hunting lodge. When I was researching local properties owned by members of the department, I found a hunting lodge registered to a shell company. The tax records showed Parker, Reynolds, and several other officers as frequent visitors. Location? Maya asked sharply. 20 miles west of Riverdale. Remote, gated property. Minimal digital footprint. Cooper joined their huddle, sensing the development. What are you thinking, Commander? A potential evidence cache, Maya explained. Somewhere Reynolds and his network might keep compromising. Materials that couldn't be destroyed, but needed to be controlled. Cooper weighed this quickly. It's worth checking, but we're spread thin already. The priority has to be securing what we have against the governor's order. I'll go, Maya volunteered immediately. I can infiltrate the property, document anything relevant, and extract without detection. Too risky, Cooper objected. You're our key witness. I'm also a Navy SEAL with extensive training in exactly this kind of operation, Maya countered. No one else here has those qualifications. Martinez looked torn. She's right about the skills, but if she's caught, I won't be, Maya stated, with quiet confidence. After a tense debate, Cooper reluctantly agreed. Take minimal equipment, documentation only, photos, coordinates, external evidence. Do not engage. Do not enter unless absolutely necessary. Understood, Maya confirmed. As the federal team worked to secure their investigation against political interference, Maya and Chen prepared for the reconnaissance mission. Chen would handle communications and remote support, while Maya infiltrated the property. This feels like old times, Chen remarked as he helped Maya check her equipment. Except usually we'd have a dozen operators and air support. Sometimes smaller is better, Maya replied, securing the compact camera and night vision device. Less chance of detection. As twilight approached, Maya was dropped at a location 3 miles from the hunting lodge. Dressed in dark tactical clothing, she moved through the forest with practiced precision, her SEAL training evident in every silent step. The hunting lodge came into view after an hour's careful approach. It was a substantial log structure surrounded by smaller outbuildings, the entire compound enclosed by a high fence with security cameras mounted at intervals. Maya observed the property from concealment, noting guard patterns and security measures. 2 men patrolled the perimeter at irregular intervals. Light shone from several windows in the main building. At least 4 vehicles were parked in front, including Reynolds' distinctive SUV. Target confirmed, Maya whispered into her communications device. Reynolds is on site. Multiple vehicles suggest a meeting in progress. Proceed with caution, Chen's voice came through her earpiece. Remember, documentation only. Maya circled the property, identifying the security system components and potential blind spots. As she approached the northern edge, she noticed something unusual. A small outbuilding separated from the main compound, with its own security measures that seemed excessive for a mere storage shed. Moving closer, she observed a reinforced door, security camera, and keypad access. Unlike the main building's casual security appropriate for a hunting lodge, this structure was fortified like a sensitive installation. I've identified a potential, secure storage facility, Maya reported. Heavily protected, separated from main structures. Can you get closer images without exposure? Chen asked. Affirmative. Using natural cover, Maya worked her way to within 30 yards of the outbuilding. The security camera swept in a predictable pattern, leaving a 3-second blind spot during each rotation. Timing her movement precisely, Maya darted forward during one such blind moment, pressing herself against the building's side wall. From this position, she could peer through a narrow, reinforced window. What she saw inside confirmed their suspicions. The interior was filled with filing cabinets, electronic storage media, and what appeared to be evidence boxes labeled with case numbers. Jackpot, Maya whispered, capturing images through the window. They're storing case files, evidence, possibly recordings. As she documented the interior, Maya noticed something that made her blood run cold. On a central table lay an open file, with her own name clearly visible on the label. Beside it sat what looked like planted evidence being prepared: a bag of what appeared to be drugs, a weapon similar to military issue, and forged documents. "They're fabricating additional evidence against me," Maya reported tensely. "Looks like they're preparing for their next move." Before Chen could respond, the sound of approaching vehicles caught Maya's attention. Headlights swept the access road as a convoy of cars approached the compound. "Multiple vehicles inbound," Maya reported, retreating from the outbuilding to a concealed position. "At least 3, possibly official. Cannot confirm identities." As the vehicles parked, Maya used the camera's zoom to identify the occupants. Her breath caught as she recognized not only local officials but state-level authorities, including someone who appeared to be from the governor's office. "This is bigger than we thought," she whispered. "State-level involvement confirmed." The meeting unfolding before her eyes revealed the true extent of Reynolds's network. Not just a local corruption ring, but a cancer that had spread throughout multiple levels of government. This wasn't just about her case anymore. It was about systematic civil rights violations sanctioned and protected by officials sworn to uphold the law. As Maya carefully extracted from her position, documenting everything possible without detection, she knew they had finally uncovered the evidence that could bring down not just Reynolds, but an entire corrupt system. The question now was whether they could get this information to federal authorities before Reynolds and his powerful allies shut down their investigation completely. Back at the rendezvous point, Chen waited anxiously, relief evident when Maya emerged undetected from the forest. "Did you get what we needed?" he asked as they quickly departed the area. Maya reviewed the images she'd captured, her expression grim but determined. "More than we expected. The conspiracy goes higher than anyone realized." As they raced back toward Atlanta, Maya knew that the evidence she'd gathered might be their last chance to expose the truth before Reynolds's network closed ranks completely. The digital trail had led them to physical evidence that couldn't be erased with a keystroke or dismissed as manipulation. Now they just had to ensure it reached the right hands before Reynolds discovered they'd found his secret cache, and before his powerful allies could bury the investigation for good. The federal building in Atlanta had transformed into a fortress of activity. When Maya and Chen arrived with the new evidence, they found additional security personnel stationed at every entrance, and Cooper orchestrating a complex operation from the main conference room. "What's happening?" Maya asked as they entered. "Our leaked investigation triggered a political firestorm," Cooper explained, not looking up from the documents spread before her. "The governor has officially requested that the Justice Department cease all activities related to Riverdale law enforcement, claiming jurisdictional overreach." "Can they do that?" Chen asked. "They're trying," Martinez replied, joining them. "But there's something else. The agent we had monitoring communications at the Riverdale Sheriff's Department has been compromised." Maya's stomach tightened. "Captured?" "Technically arrested," Martinez clarified. "Special Agent Wilson was posing as a new deputy. Reynolds somehow identified him and had him arrested on fabricated charges of evidence tampering." "They know we're building a case," Maya concluded. "Worse," Cooper added grimly. "They know exactly what evidence we have and don't have. Wilson's cover materials included detailed briefings on our investigation. The implications were clear. Reynolds now knew precisely what the federal authorities could prove and what remained circumstantial. He would be working to eliminate vulnerabilities." Maya placed her camera on the table. "Then this just became critical. I documented a secure storage facility at the hunting lodge containing what appears to be evidence from numerous cases, including mine." Cooper examined the images with growing intensity. "This is exactly what we needed. Physical evidence that can't be easily destroyed or denied. But also evidence they'll now move or destroy once they realize Wilson knew about the hunting lodge," Chen pointed out. "They don't know about the outbuilding specifically," Maya countered. "Wilson's briefing only mentioned the lodge itself as a location of interest. The secure storage facility was my discovery." Cooper made a quick decision. "We need to move on this immediately. Martinez, prepare a tactical team for evidence recovery. I'll secure an emergency warrant based on these photos. As preparations accelerated, Maya reviewed the images she'd captured of her own case file. They're planning something specific for me. The planted evidence included drugs, a weapon, and what looked like forged correspondence. Setting you up as a dangerous radical with connections to extremist groups, Martinez suggested, studying the images. Classic character assassination to undermine your credibility as a witness. We need to free Agent Wilson, Maya insisted. He's the only one who can testify about what he witnessed inside the department. Cooper nodded agreement. I've already requested an emergency federal habeas corpus, but given the state-level involvement we're seeing, I'm not optimistic about a quick resolution. The situation grew more complex when news arrived that the governor had scheduled a press conference for the following morning. The anticipated topic, federal interference in state law enforcement matters. They're going public with their pushback, Cooper observed, trying to frame this as a jurisdictional dispute rather than a civil rights investigation. We need to get ahead of this, Chen suggested. Release some of what we know to the media before they control the narrative. Too risky without more solid evidence, Cooper countered. If we show our hand too early, they'll simply deny everything and accelerate the evidence destruction. Maya, who had been studying the tactical maps of the hunting lodge area, looked up with sudden determination. We don't need to go public yet. We need to force their hand. What are you thinking? Martinez asked, recognizing the look from their shared operations. Reynolds believes he knows what we have and don't have. He thinks he's one step ahead. Maya pointed to the outbuilding in her photos. What if we make him think his secure storage has been compromised? He'll have to react, potentially making mistakes. A false flag operation, Cooper translated, considering the idea. Make them think we've accessed the evidence when we haven't. Yet, Maya clarified. We haven't accessed it yet. But their reaction to the threat might create an opening. The strategy took shape rapidly. Using Maya's reconnaissance information, the team developed a plan to trigger the hunting lodge's perimeter alarms without actually breaching the property. The goal: make Reynolds and his network believe their evidence cache was under imminent threat, forcing them to take action that would reveal their methods and priorities. As night fell, Martinez led a small team to execute the distraction while Cooper prepared the legal paperwork for an official raid once they had confirmation of evidence movement. Maya and Chen established surveillance positions around the lodge, from a distance, using high-powered optics to monitor the reaction. The plan worked almost too well. Within minutes of the perimeter alarm being triggered, the hunting lodge erupted with activity. Vehicles arrived rapidly, including Reynolds' SUV and several unmarked cars. Men in both uniforms and civilian clothing converged on the outbuilding. They're moving the evidence, Maya reported, watching through night vision equipment as boxes were hurriedly loaded into vehicles. Multiple destinations based on the different directions vehicles are departing. We can't track all of them, Martinez said from her position. We don't have enough personnel. A new vehicle arrived at the lodge, larger than the others, with official state government plates. A man in an expensive suit emerged, directing the operation with clear authority. That's State Attorney General Blackwood, Cooper identified, him from the surveillance images transmitted to the command center. This confirms state-level involvement. Through their surveillance, they witnessed a heated argument between Reynolds and Blackwood. Though they couldn't hear the exchange, the body language was clear. Disagreement about how to handle the situation. Reynolds wants to destroy everything, Maya interpreted, reading the tactical situation. Blackwood is overruling him, wanting to preserve something. Self-preservation, Cooper suggested. Blackwood's too high profile to risk complete destruction of evidence that might implicate him if discovered later. The surveillance team tracked the vehicles as they departed, identifying 3 primary destinations: the State Attorney General's office in the capital, a private storage facility registered to a shell company, and Reynolds' own residence. He's keeping some evidence close, Maya noted as they watched Reynolds personally carry a box into his house. That's either arrogance or desperation, or the most damaging material that he doesn't trust anyone else to handle, Chen suggested. With the evidence dispersed, Cooper executed the next phase of their plan: Using the surveillance confirmation of evidence being moved from a supposedly secure government facility after hours, she secured emergency warrants for all 3 locations. "We move at dawn," Cooper informed the team. "Simultaneous raids on all 3 locations before they can relocate again." As the federal team prepared for the morning operation, Maya received an unexpected communication. Teresa Valdez, the court clerk who had agreed to testify, had sent an encrypted message through the secure channel Martinez had established. "Reynolds knows about my cooperation," the message read. "He just came to my house, threatening my family. Said he knows everything we told the feds. Getting my children to safety but needed to warn you, he's planning something big. Said this ends tomorrow, one way or another." The warning sent a chill through the command center. Reynolds was growing increasingly unstable, a dangerous development for everyone involved. "We need to accelerate our timeline," Cooper decided after reviewing the message. "If Reynolds is planning some kind of last stand, we can't wait until morning." "He'll be expecting that," Maya cautioned. "Tactical response to a threat is predictable. We need to outthink him." As they debated strategy, surveillance reported new movement at Reynolds' residence. The deputy had emerged, armed and in tactical gear, getting into his personal vehicle rather than his official SUV. "He's on the move," Martinez reported. "Traveling light, armed, no evidence materials visible." "Track him," Cooper ordered, "but maintain distance. If he's as unstable as Valdez suggests, any confrontation could be volatile." The tracking team followed Reynolds as he drove out of Riverdale, taking back roads and making frequent direction changes to detect surveillance. His destination became clear as he approached the rural area where Maya's grandmother's house stood. "He's coming after me personally," Maya realized, "using my property as the battleground." "It's a trap," Chen warned. "He knows you're with us, not at the house." "No," Maya said slowly, the tactical picture becoming clear in her mind. "It's not a trap, it's a statement. He's going to destroy my grandmother's house, my last connection to Riverdale, as a message." "We can't know that for certain," Cooper cautioned. "He could be meeting someone there, retrieving hidden evidence, any number of scenarios." "I know how he thinks now," Maya insisted. "This is personal for him. It's not just about covering up crimes anymore. It's about erasing me completely." As they monitored Reynolds' approach to the property, thermal imaging confirmed Maya's assessment. The deputy was alone, carrying what appeared to be accelerants and ignition devices, the components for arson. "We can take him into custody now," Cooper said. "Attempted arson of a federal witness's property, combined with everything else, would be enough to hold him." Maya considered this, then shook her head. "If we arrest him now, we get Reynolds, but not his network. The broader conspiracy remains intact." She pointed to the surveillance of Reynolds' house. "The evidence he kept is still there. If we move on him at my grandmother's property, someone will remove or destroy it before we can secure it." "What do you suggest?" Cooper asked. "Let him think he's succeeded. Let him believe he's sent his message by destroying my property. His guard will be down when he returns home, thinking he's won this round." The decision was difficult, especially for Maya, watching her last connection to her grandmother potentially go up in flames. But the strategic value was undeniable. Reynolds, operating alone, believing he had struck a significant blow, would be vulnerable upon his return. "Maintain surveillance on the residence," Cooper ordered. "The moment Reynolds returns, we move in with the full tactical team." As they waited, monitoring Reynolds' methodical preparation of the arson at Maya's grandmother's property, Martinez approached Maya privately. "Are you sure about this? That house is your heritage." Maya watched the thermal imagery of Reynolds moving around the property she'd inherited. "My grandmother taught me that justice matters more than possessions. She'd understand." The night progressed with agonizing slowness. Reynolds took his time at the property, placing accelerants at structural weak points with professional precision. When he finally ignited the fire and departed, Maya watched stoically as the heat signature on the thermal imaging bloomed into a conflagration. "Target is returning to primary residence," surveillance reported. "ETA 20 minutes. "All teams in position," Cooper confirmed, then turned to Maya. You don't have to be part of this raid. No one would question you sitting this one out. Maya checked her tactical vest and the standard-issue sidearm Cooper had authorized for her as a consultant to the operation. I've been fighting this battle from the beginning. I need to see it through. The raid on Deputy Reynolds' residence was executed with precision that would have impressed Maya's SEAL teammates. FBI tactical teams secured the perimeter, while specialized entry teams breached simultaneously from multiple access points. Maya, despite her insistence on participating, was positioned with the command element at Cooper's insistence, close enough to witness but protected from the front lines. Reynolds' return to his residence had been tracked continuously. He had entered his home 17 minutes earlier, still alone, his demeanor described by surveillance as relaxed, almost satisfied, after watching Maya's grandmother's house burn. "Target secured," came the report through tactical communications. "Residence clear, evidence in plain view." Cooper led the primary investigation team into the house once it was declared secure. Maya followed with Chen and Martinez, her emotions tightly controlled as she finally came face to face with Deputy Reynolds in custody. The man who had terrorized her and countless others sat handcuffed in his living room, surrounded by federal agents. His initial smugness had given way to cold fury as he watched the investigators documenting the evidence he'd foolishly brought to his home. "Lieutenant Commander Washington," he acknowledged with a sneer. "Hiding behind federal badges now. Always. Knew you people couldn't fight your own battles." Maya didn't respond to the bait, focusing instead on the evidence being cataloged. The box Reynolds had personally transported contained exactly what they'd hoped to find: documentation of the Fellowship's systematic targeting of successful minorities, including internal communications, falsified evidence, and records of judicial manipulation. "Reynolds, Derek James," Cooper read formally. "You're under arrest for multiple federal civil rights violations: obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, conspiracy against rights, and attempted arson of a federal witness's property. You've got nothing that will stick," Reynolds replied with disturbing confidence. "You think you're the first feds to come after me? Your careers will be over before my case even reaches trial." Cooper continued processing the scene, unfazed by the threats. "Document everything exactly according to protocol. This evidence needs to be airtight." As federal technicians photographed and logged each item, Maya discovered a laptop partially hidden under Reynolds' couch. "This needs to be checked," she indicated to the evidence team. While the computer was being secured, Reynolds' phone rang. Cooper, holding the device as evidence, checked the caller ID. State AG Blackwood. "Seems your friends are checking in," Cooper noted, allowing the call to go to voicemail. Reynolds' expression flickered briefly with what Maya recognized as concern, before he reasserted his mask of confidence. "You have no idea what you're stepping into, federal bitch. This goes so much higher than you can reach." "That's what they all say," Cooper replied evenly, continuing her work. The evidence recovery was nearly complete when the tactical team leader approached Cooper urgently. "Ma'am, we have multiple vehicles approaching. State police insignia but unscheduled. No response to communications." Cooper moved immediately to the window, observing the approaching convoy. "How many?" 6 vehicles, approximately 20 personnel. Tactically positioned." Maya joined Cooper at the window, recognizing the formation. "That's not standard state police procedure. That's a paramilitary approach." Cooper activated her communications. "All federal personnel, secure the evidence and prepare for potential confrontation. Maintain discipline and jurisdictional authority." The approaching vehicles established a perimeter around Reynolds' property, state police officers emerging, with tactical weapons in ready positions, not pointed at federal agents yet, but prepared to be. "This is Commissioner Dawson, Georgia State Police," announced a voice through a vehicle loudspeaker. "Federal agents are ordered to stand down and release Deputy Reynolds into state custody by order of the governor." Cooper stepped onto the front porch, credentials visible. "This is Special Agent Diana Cooper, FBI Civil Rights Division. We are executing a federal warrant. State authorities have no jurisdiction in this matter." As the standoff escalated, Maya observed Reynolds watching, with growing satisfaction. This was clearly the intervention he had expected. state power being used to shield him from federal justice. "We have direct orders from the governor to secure this scene as a matter of state interest," Commissioner Dawson insisted, approaching, on foot, with several officers. "Any resistance will be considered obstruction of state law enforcement duties. Your governor has no authority to interfere with a federal civil rights investigation," Cooper replied firmly. "I suggest you contact your legal department before taking any action that constitutes interference with federal officers." The tension stretched between the two forces, neither willing to back down. Maya recognized the dangerous precipice they were approaching. Armed federal and state officers in a jurisdictional confrontation with no clear resolution protocol. Reynolds, sensing the potential for chaos, decided to accelerate it. "These feds are planting evidence," he called out loudly to the state officers. "They broke into my home illegally. This is a political witch hunt." Several state officers raised their weapons slightly, the situation deteriorating rapidly. Maya stepped forward slowly, her hands visible. "Officers, before this goes too far, you need to know what's happening here. My name is Lieutenant Commander Maya Washington, U.S. Navy SEALs. I was illegally detained, assaulted, and framed by Deputy Reynolds as part of a systematic civil rights conspiracy." Her calm, authoritative voice caught the attention of the state officers. Maya continued, addressing them directly rather than their commissioner. "I swore an oath to the Constitution, just like you did. That oath doesn't change whether you wear a state or federal uniform. The evidence in that house proves that Reynolds and others have been violating citizens' constitutional rights for years. Before you risk your careers and possibly lives over jurisdictional politics, you should ask yourselves if that's really the side of history you want to be on." Her words created a visible hesitation among some of the state officers. Commissioner Dawson noticed it too and moved to reassert control. "Stand firm. Our orders come directly from the governor." "Who's currently being investigated for conspiracy against rights?" Cooper added loudly enough for all to hear. "The evidence we've secured implicates state-level officials. Ask yourselves why they're so desperate to shut this down." The standoff might have continued indefinitely if not for an unexpected development. 3 news vans turned onto the street, cameras already rolling. Elena Diaz, the journalist they had contacted earlier, had brought reinforcements. "Looks like we have media coverage of this historic confrontation between federal civil rights investigators and state police," Diaz narrated loudly for her camera. "Sources tell us federal agents have uncovered evidence of systematic civil rights violations involving local and state officials." The presence of news cameras changed the calculus immediately. Commissioner Dawson, suddenly aware that his actions would be documented for public consumption, moderated his approach. "We will maintain our position pending clarification of jurisdictional authority," he announced, a face-saving retreat from his previous ultimatum. With the immediate threat of armed confrontation reduced, Cooper seized the opportunity. "Continue. Securing the evidence. Priority transport to federal facilities immediately." As federal agents methodically transferred the evidence to secure vehicles, Reynolds realized his expected rescue wasn't materializing as planned. His demeanor shifted, from confidence to desperation. "This isn't over," he snarled as federal agents prepared to transport him. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. People like you don't win against people like us." Maya approached him, maintaining a professional distance. "That's where you're wrong, Reynolds. People like me have been winning against people like you throughout American history. It just takes longer than it should." Reynolds' composure finally shattered. With a sudden surge of strength born of desperation, he broke free from the agent escorting him, lunging toward Maya with unmasked hatred. "You uppity bit!" His attack never landed. Maya, with the reflexes of her SEAL training, sidestepped smoothly. Reynolds' momentum carried him forward as Maya executed a textbook restraint maneuver, neutralizing the threat without excessive force. The entire incident was captured by multiple cameras, federal body cams, news crews, and state police dashboard video. Reynolds' unhinged attack and racist slur, contrasted with Maya's controlled professional response, painted an undeniable picture. As federal agents secured Reynolds again, Maya noticed the expressions of the state police officers. Many showed clear discomfort, their earlier resolve visibly weakened by witnessing Reynolds's true nature exposed so nakedly. Commissioner Dawson, aware that the political winds had shifted with the media presence, announced that state police would cooperate with the federal investigation while maintaining appropriate jurisdictional oversight. Bureaucratic language that effectively conceded the immediate confrontation. With Reynolds secured and the evidence protected, Maya watched as the federal convoy departed, carrying away both the corrupt deputy and the documentation of his crimes. The standoff had been diffused without violence, but she harbored no illusions that the larger battle was over. The state-level conspiracy remained largely intact, with only its local enforcer now in custody. The governor, Attorney General Blackwood, and others implicated in the evidence would fight back with every resource at their disposal. But for the first time since her ordeal began, Maya felt the momentum shifting toward justice. As she prepared to depart with Martinez, Maya took one final look at Reynolds's house, the home of a man who had terrorized countless minorities for believing they could succeed in his town. The building stood as a monument to the banality of evil, how ordinary houses could hide extraordinary corruption. "It's never the monsters you can easily identify," she remarked to Martinez. "It's always the ones who look like regular people, with regular homes, hiding behind badges and respectability." "That's why they're so dangerous," Martinez agreed, "and why exposing them is so important." As they drove away, Maya's thoughts turned to her grandmother's house, now reduced to ashes by Reynolds's vindictive arson. The loss stung deeply, yet she found unexpected clarity in it. Reynolds had destroyed her physical connection to Riverdale, but in doing so, he had liberated her from the last reason to ever return there. Her future path was becoming clear, not returning to her SEAL team as she had originally planned before this ordeal began, but something new. Something directly addressing the systemic injustice she had experienced firsthand. "What happens next?" she asked Cooper, who rode with them toward the federal building. "Grand jury, indictments, federal civil rights trial," Cooper listed, "and a much broader investigation into the fellowship and its state-level connections." Maya nodded, her mind already moving beyond the immediate legal proceedings. "And after that?" Cooper gave her an appraising look. "That depends on what you want to happen next, Commander Washington. People with your experience who've seen what you've seen, they tend to find new battles to fight." Maya gazed out the window at the Georgia landscape passing by. Her ordeal in Riverdale had changed her in ways she was only beginning to understand. One thing was certain. She could never again pretend that the battles for America's soul were only fought on foreign shores. The federal courthouse in Atlanta presented a stark contrast to the Riverdale County facility where Maya's ordeal had begun. Grand marble columns supported a facade embossed with the words "Equal Justice Under Law," words that had once seemed like a promise but now felt like a challenge, an aspiration not yet fully realized. 3 months had passed since Reynolds's arrest. 3 months of grand jury testimony, evidence processing, and legal maneuvering as the full scope of the fellowship's activities was exposed. The case had expanded beyond Maya's personal experience to encompass dozens of victims across multiple counties and years of systematic civil rights violations. Maya entered the courtroom in her formal Navy dress uniform, ribbons and insignia reflecting her distinguished service. The military had formally cleared her of all allegations, reinstating her with full honors and an official apology for the initial hesitation to support her. But the scars of the experience remained, invisible but profound. The courtroom was packed to capacity. Rows of spectators included journalists, legal observers, and most significantly, victims of Reynolds and his network. Maya recognized faces from the files they had recovered. The doctor who had questioned Reynolds during a traffic stop, the Hispanic business owner who had filed a complaint, and dozens more who had suffered under the fellowship's reign of targeted harassment. In the front row sat Marcus Johnson and his mother, their presence a personal victory for Maya. After Reynolds's arrest and the federal takeover of the investigation, they had finally felt safe enough to come forward with their testimony about the original incident that had sparked Maya's involvement. At the defense table sat not just Reynolds, but several other defendants: Chief Parker, Judge Harrison, Judge Crawford, and 3 other Riverdale officers implicated in the conspiracy. State Attorney General Blackwood was conspicuously absent, having secured a separate trial through his high-powered legal team, a reminder that justice often operated at different speeds for different levels of power. The trial had attracted national attention, becoming a flashpoint in ongoing discussions about systemic racism in law enforcement. Outside the courthouse, demonstrators on both sides made their voices heard, some supporting the federal prosecution, others decrying outside interference in local matters. Federal District Judge Eliza Montgomery, a respected jurist with a reputation for impartiality, called the court to order. The prosecution team, led by Special Prosecutor Terrence Washington, was prepared to present its opening statements. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Washington began, his resonant voice filling the courtroom. "This case is about the perversion of justice itself. The defendants before you today did not merely commit individual acts of discrimination or harassment. They constructed an entire system designed to target successful minorities, to keep them in their place, through the very legal mechanisms meant to protect all citizens equally." Washington methodically outlined the case the prosecution would present. Documented patterns of targeted enforcement, manipulated evidence, judicial collusion, and the intimidation of witnesses who attempted to speak out. You will hear testimony from dozens of victims whose lives and livelihoods were damaged or destroyed. You will see documentary evidence of the defendants' coordinated efforts, their communications, their methods. And you will hear how Lieutenant Commander Maya Washington, a decorated Navy SEAL who has served this country with distinction in ways most of us can never know, became both their target and ultimately the catalyst for exposing their crimes. The defense strategy quickly became apparent as each defendant's attorney attempted to distance their client from the others, suggesting they were unaware of any broader conspiracy. Reynolds' attorney took a particularly aggressive approach, characterizing the entire case as federal overreach motivated by political correctness. Deputy Reynolds was simply doing his job in a high-crime community, his attorney claimed, ignoring the documented fact that Riverdale's crime rates were below state averages. His methods may seem harsh to outsiders, but they were appropriate to the environment he patrolled. Maya maintained her composure as the defense attempted to paint Reynolds as a dedicated officer, and herself as an outsider who had interfered with local law enforcement. She had faced enemy propaganda before. This was no different. Over the next 2 weeks, the prosecution methodically built its case. The evidence recovered from Reynolds' home and the hunting lodge outbuilding provided a documentary foundation. Financial records demonstrated unusual patterns of property seizures and civil forfeitures, disproportionately targeting minority-owned businesses. Court records showed vastly different outcomes for similar cases, based solely on the defendant's race. When it was Maya's turn to testify, she approached the witness stand with the same calm authority she brought to military operations. For nearly 6 hours, she recounted every detail of her experience, from the initial encounter outside the library to Reynolds' final desperate attack during his arrest. Reynolds' attorney attempted to undermine her credibility during cross-examination, suggesting her military background made her prone to seeing opposition as an enemy and interpreting normal law enforcement as oppression. "Commander Washington," he asked with practiced skepticism, "isn't it possible that you, accustomed to the clear chains of command in military settings, simply misinterpreted Deputy Reynolds' assertive policing style as something more sinister?" Maya met his gaze steadily. "Sir, Navy SEALs are specifically trained to accurately assess complex situations under extreme pressure. We're taught to recognize the difference between legitimate authority and abuse of power. What I witnessed in Riverdale wasn't assertive policing. It was systematic oppression disguised as law enforcement." The defense attorney changed tactics. "You've made quite a name for yourself with this case, haven't you? National media attention, book deals being offered, speaking engagements. Some might say you've benefited professionally from these allegations." Maya's response was measured, but firm. "I lost my grandmother's home, my last connection to my family heritage, when your client burned it to the ground. I spent time in jail for crimes I didn't commit. My military career was temporarily derailed. If you consider that benefiting, Then we have very different definitions of the word. The testimony that proved most damaging to the defense came from unexpected sources. 3 junior officers from the Riverdale Sheriff's Department, including Officer Garcia, who had first warned Maya about Reynolds' history, came forward to testify about the pressure to participate in discriminatory practices. "We were instructed to scrutinize certain types of people more closely," Garcia testified. "Successful minorities especially. If they drove nice cars, owned businesses, lived in certain neighborhoods, they were automatic targets for extra attention." Judge Harrison's former clerk provided devastating testimony about how cases were assigned and managed based on the defendant's race. Court records were altered, evidence was suppressed, and judges like Harrison and Crawford ensured that outcomes aligned with the fellowship's agenda. Perhaps most powerful was the parade of victims who testified about their experiences. Careers derailed, reputations destroyed, lives uprooted by Reynolds and his network. Their stories formed a pattern too consistent to dismiss, too numerous to explain away as coincidence. Throughout the trial, Reynolds' demeanor deteriorated visibly. The confident, controlling deputy gave way to an increasingly agitated defendant as the weight of evidence mounted against him. His attorneys repeatedly had to calm him during particularly damaging testimony. When the prosecution rested its case, the defense attempted to present Reynolds as a scapegoat for broader societal problems. They called character witnesses who spoke about his community involvement and dedication to maintaining order in Riverdale. The prosecution's cross-examination exposed these witnesses' connections to the fellowship and their own histories of discriminatory behavior. What had been intended as character rehabilitation instead revealed the broader network of complicity that had enabled Reynolds for years. As the trial neared its conclusion, tension in the courtroom reached a crescendo. The prosecution's closing argument synthesized weeks of testimony and evidence into a powerful narrative of systematic oppression and corruption. "The evidence before you isn't about isolated incidents or misunderstandings," Washington told the jury. "It's about a deliberate system designed to deny equal protection under law to citizens based solely on their race. The defendants didn't just fail to provide justice, they actively perverted it, weaponized it, turned it against the very people they swore to protect and serve." The defense's closing arguments emphasized local control and community standards, attempting to frame the case as federal interference rather than civil rights enforcement. Reynolds' attorney particularly focused on undermining Maya's credibility, suggesting her military background made her see enemies everywhere. As the jury began deliberations, Maya sat in the gallery surrounded by other victims of the fellowship, people whose stories might never have come to light without her stand against Reynolds. The solidarity among them transcended race, age, and background, united by their shared experience of injustice and their determination to see it remedied. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned. Judge Montgomery called for the verdict to be read. In the matter of United States versus Reynolds et al., on the charge of conspiracy against rights under color of law, we find the defendant, Derek James Reynolds, guilty. The verdict continued through multiple charges and defendants. Reynolds was convicted on all counts. Chief Parker, Judge Harrison, and Judge Crawford were found guilty of most charges, with a few acquittals on lesser counts. The 3 officers who had directly participated in Maya's false arrest received split verdicts reflecting their lesser roles in the conspiracy. As the courtroom absorbed the impact of the verdicts, Reynolds finally lost the last vestiges of his control. Rising suddenly from his seat, he lunged toward the prosecution table, his face contorted with rage. "This is all your fault," he shouted, looking directly at Maya in the gallery. "You people are destroying everything." Federal marshals moved to restrain him, but Reynolds broke free, charging toward Maya with murderous intent. The courtroom erupted in chaos as spectators scrambled to get out of the way. Maya stood her ground, years of combat training taking over. As Reynolds reached her, she sidestepped his wild attack and executed a precise restraint technique, controlling his momentum and bringing him to the ground with minimal force. "It's over, Reynolds," she said quietly, as marshals secured him. "You did this to yourself." The image was captured by courtroom artists and photographers. The former deputy, handcuffed and restrained, being led away by marshals after Maya had defended herself with professional restraint despite his unprovoked attack, it would become the defining visual of a case that exposed not just individual corruption, but systematic failure. Judge Montgomery restored order to the courtroom before addressing the defendants. The evidence presented in this trial revealed not merely criminal behavior but a fundamental betrayal of public trust. You used the authority granted to you by the people to oppress the very citizens you swore to protect. There can be no greater violation of your oaths. At sentencing 2 weeks later, Reynolds received 25 years in federal prison. The other defendants received sentences ranging from 8 to 15 years, reflecting their varying levels of involvement in the conspiracy. As Maya left the courthouse after sentencing, she found herself surrounded by people whose lives had been impacted by Reynolds and his network, now free to rebuild without the shadow of targeted harassment hanging over them. Marcus Johnson's mother approached her, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said simply, embracing Maya. "My son has a future now." Maya understood that the verdicts and sentences, while significant, were just the beginning. The state-level conspiracy remained partially intact, with investigations continuing into the governor's office and other high-ranking officials. The system that had enabled Reynolds would not be dismantled overnight. But standing there, surrounded by people who had found justice after years of suffering, Maya knew with certainty that her path forward was clear. This was a different kind of battlefield than she had trained for, but the mission was fundamentally the same: protecting American values against those who would undermine them, whether foreign or domestic. 1 year after the verdict that had sent Deputy Reynolds and his co-conspirators to federal prison, Maya Washington stood at a podium in Washington, D.C., addressing a packed auditorium at the Department of Justice. Behind her hung a banner reading, "Civil Rights Enforcement Initiative," a new federal program that would fundamentally transform how civil rights violations by law enforcement were investigated and prosecuted nationwide. "What happened in Riverdale wasn't unique," Maya stated, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had experienced the system's failures firsthand. It was simply exposed in a way that couldn't be ignored or dismissed. Similar patterns exist in communities across this country, patterns that remain hidden until someone with the resources, platform, or sheer determination manages to break through the barriers designed to protect them. The audience included federal prosecutors, civil rights attorneys, community activists, and law enforcement reform advocates. Also present were many of the victims from Riverdale and surrounding counties who had found justice through the federal prosecution of Reynolds and his network. The initiative we're launching today addresses the fundamental flaw in our current approach to civil rights enforcement, Maya continued. Until now, the burden of proving systematic discrimination has fallen almost entirely on the victims, the very people with the fewest resources to fight back. This initiative shifts that burden where it belongs, onto the systems themselves. The Civil Rights Enforcement Initiative represented a revolutionary approach. Rather than waiting for individual complaints to accumulate over years, it established proactive monitoring of statistical patterns that might indicate discriminatory enforcement. It created rapid response teams to investigate incidents before evidence could be manipulated or destroyed. Most significantly, it established direct federal oversight of local departments with established patterns of civil rights complaints. In the year since the Reynolds verdict, Maya's path had evolved in ways she couldn't have anticipated when she first returned to Riverdale to handle her grandmother's estate. After 16 years of distinguished service, she had made the difficult decision to retire from active duty with the Navy SEALs. Her experience had revealed a different front in the battle to defend American values, one that needed her unique combination of tactical expertise, strategic thinking, and personal understanding of the issues at stake. Attorney General Harriet Chen, who had personally recruited Maya to lead the new initiative, joined her at the podium. Commander Washington brings unparalleled credentials to this role. Her military background taught her how to succeed against seemingly impossible odds. Her personal experience with civil rights violations gives her insight into the real-world impact of discrimination, and her unwavering commitment to justice makes her the perfect person to lead this unprecedented effort. The road to this moment had not been easy. The political backlash against the federal prosecution in Riverdale had been fierce. State officials had resisted cooperating with broader investigations, claiming federal overreach. Media coverage had been polarized, with some outlets celebrating the exposure of systematic discrimination, while others framed it as an attack on local governance. Through it all, Maya had remained focused on the ultimate goal, not just punishing individual bad actors but transforming the systems that enabled them. Her grandmother's home might have been reduced to ashes by Reynolds's vindictive arson, but from those ashes had risen something far more powerful, a nationwide movement for accountability. Today, we announce the first 5 jurisdictions that will participate in our pilot program, Maya stated, revealing a map on the large screen behind her. These communities volunteered to be part of this initiative, recognizing that transparency and accountability benefit everyone, law enforcement and citizens alike. The selected jurisdictions represented diversity in geography, size, and demographics. A small rural county in Mississippi, a medium-sized city in Ohio, a suburban area in California, a tribal jurisdiction in Arizona, and a borough of New York City. In each of these communities, we'll implement comprehensive data collection on enforcement patterns, independent review mechanisms for complaints, and training programs developed jointly by civil rights experts and law enforcement professionals, Maya explained. Our goal isn't to villainize police, but to ensure that policing serves all communities equally. The foundation Maya had established with her settlement from Riverdale County had already helped dozens of victims rebuild their lives. Marcus Johnson, the teenager whose detention had first drawn Maya into confrontation with Reynolds, was now attending college on a scholarship from the foundation, studying criminal justice with plans to become a civil rights attorney. Even more significantly, officers like Garcia, who had stood up against Reynolds's corruption, had found new roles within reform departments, creating a positive ripple effect throughout law enforcement. The blue wall of silence that had protected abusive officers was showing cracks as more good officers found support for reporting misconduct. As the ceremony concluded and Maya prepared to begin her new role officially, she was approached by a familiar face, Teresa Valdez, the court clerk, whose courage in coming forward had helped break the case open. "I never thought I'd see this day," Valdez said, emotion evident in her voice. "Reynolds always seemed untouchable. The whole system protected him. Now he's in prison, and you're changing that system from the inside." Maya embraced the woman whose risk-taking had contributed so much to the eventual outcome. "This is what justice looks like. Not just punishment for wrongdoing, but repair and reform to prevent it from happening again." Later that evening, as Maya stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial watching the sunset paint the Capitol in hues of gold and amber, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had entered the Navy SEALs to defend American values against external threats, never imagining that her greatest service would involve confronting threats from within. Her phone buzzed with a notification, Attorney General Chen confirming that the governor who had protected Reynolds had been indicted on federal corruption charges, along with former State Attorney General Blackwood and 3 other high-ranking officials. The network that had enabled Reynolds was finally facing justice. Maya thought about her grandmother, whose wisdom and strength had shaped her character. Equal justice under law wasn't just a phrase carved in marble on courthouse facades. It was a promise that required constant vigilance and courage to fulfill. That promise remained unfulfilled for too many Americans, but today represented a significant step toward making it a reality for all. As darkness fell over the Capitol, Maya Washington, formerly Lieutenant Commander Washington, now Director Washington of the Civil Rights Enforcement Initiative, walked with purpose toward her future. The battle for America's soul continued, on many fronts, but she had found her place in that struggle. Not on foreign shores with a weapon in hand, but here at home with something equally powerful: the truth, backed by the courage to speak it no matter the cost. The story of Maya Washington's fight against systemic racism reveals powerful truths about justice in America. First, it shows that discrimination often hides behind badges, titles, and normal procedures, making it both dangerous and difficult to confront. True oppression rarely announces itself. Instead, it disguises itself as maintaining order or community standards. Second, Maya's journey demonstrates that fighting injustice requires more than individual courage. It demands strategic thinking, evidence gathering, and building alliances across systems. One person standing alone, no matter how righteous their cause, can be silenced. But when victims unite, when good people within broken systems speak up, and when outside authorities intervene, even entrenched corruption can be overcome. Third, the story reminds us that privilege isn't just about advantage, it's about invisibility. Reynolds and his network operated for years without scrutiny, because their victims lacked the resources, connections, and credibility to expose them. It wasn't until someone with Maya's credentials and training experienced the same treatment that the pattern became impossible to ignore. Perhaps most importantly, Maya's story teaches us that true justice isn't achieved through revenge, but through reform. Her ultimate victory wasn't putting Reynolds behind bars. It was transforming the system that empowered him. By focusing on institutional change rather than personal vindication, she ensured that countless future victims would be spared similar experiences. Finally, this story challenges us to recognize that patriotism sometimes means confronting our nation's failures rather than excusing them. Maya's military service and her civil rights work stemmed from the same dedication to American ideals, a recognition that defending the Constitution requires vigilance against enemies both foreign and domestic. True patriots don't just celebrate what America is, they work tirelessly toward what America claims to be. Have you ever witnessed discrimination in your community and felt powerless to stop it? Have you seen how differently people are treated based on their appearance or background? Comment below and share your experiences. If Maya's courage in standing up to injustice inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about extraordinary individuals challenging systemic racism. What would you have done in Maya's situation? Stayed silent for self-preservation or risked everything for justice? Let us know in the comments. And remember, as Maya's story shows us, speaking truth to power may be dangerous, but silence in the face of injustice is a privilege many cannot afford. Thank you for watching, and may we all find the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult.